Rain hit the windows of St. Mary's home for children. Inside, Maya sat on her thin bed, watching water run down the glass. She was 17, with dark hair that fell past her shoulders and eyes that had seen too much sadness. This was her third time back at St. Mary's after bouncing between foster homes that never worked out. Her small room had white walls, a metal bed frame, and a dresser with a broken handle. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. For now, Maya opened her hand to look at the worn photo she always kept close. Mom and Dad smiled back at her, faces faded from years of being touched. She barely remembered them, just the smell of her mom's flower perfume and her dad's deep laugh. The car crash happened when she was 5. Since then, it had been just her, moving from place to place, never staying long enough to call anywhere home. Lights out in 10 minutes, called Miss Benson from the hallway. Maya tucked the photo under her pillow and looked out the window again.
The turnout is better than
orphanage sat on the edge of town.
Let's review the route one last
nice
time
houses
before we
gave
head
way
out.
to run-down shops and empty lots. Sirens wailed in the distance, a sound so common Maya hardly noticed anymore. Morning came with the clang of the breakfast bell. Maya dressed quickly in jeans and her one good sweater. She had school, then her after-school job at Eddie's auto shop. The job was the one bright spot in her life. Eddie had caught her looking at engines through the garage window 6 months ago and offered her work instead of shooing her away like most shop owners did with kids from St. Mary's. Maya, don't forget your math test today, Ms. Benson said, handing Maya a brown paper lunch bag, and be back by 7. No hanging around that shop after your shift ends. The school day dragged by in a blur of noisy hallways and teachers who didn't notice if she spoke up or not. When the final bell rang, Maya walked the 8 blocks to Eddie's, her steps getting lighter with each block she put between herself and school. The smell of motor oil and rubber hit her nose as she pushed open the heavy shop door. Eddie looked up from under the hood of an old Chevy. There she is, my best helper. Grab your apron. I've got a timing belt that needs changing. Maya tied the big apron around her waist. The rough canvas stiff with grease stains. Her hands, once soft, now had calluses from tools and small burns from hot engine parts. She was proud of those marks. They showed she could make things work again. 1 year left, Eddie said, passing her a wrench. Then you're free to work full-time if you want. Could use someone with your touch for engines. Maya nodded, a small smile crossing her face. In just 12 months, she'd turn 18. No more St. Mary's. No more foster care system. She'd been saving every dollar she could, hidden in a sock under her mattress. $412 so far. Not enough for much, but a start. The shop sat on the edge between 2 parts of town. To the west were the nice stores and clean streets. To the east was Riverbed, where bars stayed open all night, and men in leather jackets roared by on loud motorcycles. Eddie's shop served both sides without taking part in their fights. As Maya worked, she watched people pass by the big front windows. Women with shopping bags, men in work clothes, sometimes groups of bikers with patches on their jackets showing which gang they belonged to. The Hells Angels had the biggest shop in Riverbed. Everyone knew not to cause trouble on their streets. These bikes need love, too, Eddie always said when the riders brought in their Harleys. Don't matter who rides them. The sun was starting to set when Maya wiped her hands on a shop rag and looked at the clock. Time to head back to St. Mary's. She hung her apron on its hook by the door, not knowing that tomorrow would change everything. Not knowing that the shop bell would ring and bring in people who would turn her quiet life upside down forever. The next day started like any other at Eddie's shop. Maya swept the floor while Eddie fixed a broken headlight. The radio played old rock songs that bounced off the metal tools hanging on the wall. Then the shop bell rang. Maya looked up and nearly dropped her broom. A man stood in the doorway who seemed too big for the space. He wore a black leather jacket with patches and had a thick beard. Behind him stood a small girl with blonde pigtails and a pink backpack. The man's arms were covered in colorful tattoos, and a patch on his back showed he was not just any biker. He was Big Mike, the president of the local Hells Angels chapter. Heard you fix Harleys, Big Mike said to Eddie, his voice deep like thunder. Eddie wiped his hands on a rag. Sure, do. What's the problem with yours? As the men talked about motorcycles, Maya noticed the little girl looking around the shop with wide eyes. She seemed out of place among the tools and grease, like a flower growing through concrete. I'm Lily, the girl said, walking up to Maya. That's my dad. His bike makes funny noises. I'm Maya, she answered, surprised by how friendly the child was. Do you like cars? Lily nodded. Dad says I'm going to ride my own bike someday, but I got to learn how they work first. While Eddie and Big Mike went outside to look at the motorcycle, Maya showed Lily how to use a wrench. The girl's small hands wrapped around the tool, her face serious as she tried to turn it. Like this? Lily asked. Perfect, Maya said. You're a natural. When Big Mike came back in, he watched Mia teaching his daughter. His hard face softened a bit. She bothering you? Maya shook her head. Not at all. She's good with tools. Big Mike looked surprised, then proud. Her mom's gone. It's just us. Not many people take time with her like that. 3 days later, Big Mike's bike was fixed. But he brought it back the next week, saying the seat needed work. Lily came with him again, running straight to Maya. Can you show me more car stuff? She asked. Soon it became a regular thing. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Big Mike would find some reason to bring his perfectly working motorcycle to Eddie's. Lily would spend an hour with Maya, learning about engines and tools. Maya found herself looking forward to these visits, saving interesting parts to show the girl. Why do you live at that big house with all the other kids? Lily asked one day as they sat on overturned buckets eating ice cream Eddie had brought them. Maya's throat felt tight. I don't have parents anymore. The people at St. Mary's take care of kids like me until we're old enough to be on our own. That's sad, Lily said. Everyone needs a family. She licked her ice cream cone. My dad says you're smart with bikes. Maybe you could be in our family. Maya smiled, but her heart ached. In 6 months, she would leave St. Mary's with nowhere to go. Her plan to rent a room and work full-time seemed so small now. The thought of not seeing Lily anymore hurt worse than she expected. Other bikers started coming to the shop, too. They nodded to Maya like she belonged there. Eddie's shop became a place where leather-wearing bikers sat, drinking coffee next to regular folks, waiting for oil changes. Maya heard Eddie's business was better than ever. You got a gift, Big Mike told Maya one day as she explained to Lily how spark plugs worked not just with machines, with people, too. For the first time, Maya felt like she might have a future beyond just surviving. Then came the Tuesday in April. Maya was wiping down the front counter when she heard motorcycles outside, not the familiar rumble of Big Mike's Harley, but the high whine of sports bikes. She looked out the window and saw men in green bandanas, the river rats, enemies of the Hells Angels. At that same moment, Big Mike pulled up with Lily. The men in green saw him, too. One reached into his jacket, and Maya saw the black metal of a gun. Everything seemed to slow down as Big Mike opened the shop door. Lily stepping in first with a smile on her face, not seeing the danger behind her father. Maya didn't stop to think. She dropped her cleaning rag and ran toward Lily. The shop door was still swinging open, and through the glass, Maya could see the man with the gun raising his arm. His face looked cold and empty. Big Mike was turning around, just starting to see the danger. Get down, Maya shouted, grabbing Lily by the shoulders. She pushed the little girl behind the counter just as a loud crack split the air. The sound was so sharp it hurt Maya's ears. Then came a burning pain in her right shoulder, hot and deep, like someone had pressed a red-hot poker into Her skin. Maya fell to the floor, her head hitting the hard concrete. The world went fuzzy. Around the edges, she could hear shouting and more loud cracks. Eddie was yelling into a phone. "We need an ambulance at Eddie's auto shop. Girl's been shot." Big Mike's voice boomed over everything, roaring like an angry bear. Something warm and wet spread across Maya's shirt. She tried to lift her head but couldn't. Big Mike's face appeared above her, his eyes wide with fear. Not something she ever thought she'd see. "Stay with me, kid," he said, pressing something against her shoulder that made the pain flare up even worse. "You saved my Lily. You hear me? You saved my baby girl." Maya tried to answer, but her mouth felt stuffed with cotton. She saw Lily's small face peek over the counter, tears making trails through the grease smudges on her cheeks. Then darkness swept over Maya like a heavy blanket. Beeping sounds woke her up. Maya opened her eyes to a white ceiling and the smell of cleaning chemicals. A hospital room. Her shoulder was wrapped in thick bandages and a tube ran from her arm to a bag hanging above the bed. "She's awake," Lily's voice called out. The little girl was sitting in a chair by the window, a stuffed bear in her lap. Big Mike stood up from where he'd been sitting next to the bed. His eyes were red, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Thank God," he said, his voice rough. A nurse rushed in, followed by a doctor, who checked Maya's eyes with a bright light. "You've been out for 2 days, the doctor said. The bullet missed anything vital, but you lost a lot of blood." When the doctor left, Big Mike sat on the edge of Maya's bed. "What you did," he started, then stopped like he couldn't find the right words. "They were aiming for me, but they would have hit Lily. You pushed her away." Maya's throat felt dry. "Is she okay?" "Not a scratch," Big Mike said. "Because of you." The next week was a blur of police asking questions and nurses changing bandages. News people came to the hospital taking pictures and calling Maya a hero. Ms. Benson visited once looking worried and saying the orphanage board was meeting to decide if Maya should come back at all. "The shooting happened because of your connection to these motorcycle people," Ms. Benson said, her voice low. "It's not safe. We're thinking a group home with more rules might be better until you turn 18. Maya stared at the ceiling after Ms. Benson left. She would lose her job at Eddie's. She would lose Lily and the almost family feeling she'd started to have. Everything she had worked for was slipping away because she had done the right thing. Eddie came to visit, bringing a box of her things from the shop. "They caught the shooter," he said. "Big Mike's guys helped the police find him. Will you hire someone else?" Maya asked, trying not to cry. Eddie looked away. "The shop will be here when you're better, if they let you come back." But Maya knew better. Street Mary's wouldn't let her return to Eddie's now. In just 2 months, she would turn 18 and be out on her own anyway. The bullet had saved Lily's life, but had destroyed the small, careful plan Maya had built for herself. That night, alone in her hospital room, Maya let herself cry for the first time since the shooting. The pain in her shoulder was nothing compared to the hurt in her heart. She had finally found people who cared about her, and now she would lose them too. "Why did I have to find them right before losing them?" she whispered into the dark room. 3 weeks after the shooting, Maya was back at St. Mary's. Her arm was in a sling, and pills helped with the pain. But nothing could fix the empty feeling inside her. She sat by the window, watching rain fall just like the day before. Everything changed. Ms. Benson had made it clear. No more job at Eddie's. No more seeing Lily or Big Mike. She would stay at St. Mary's until her birthday next month, then be sent out on her own. Maya woke early on Sunday morning to a strange rumbling sound. At first, she thought it was thunder, but the sky outside was clear and blue. The rumbling grew louder, shaking the glass in the window. Curious, she got out of bed and looked outside. What she saw made her mouth drop open. Motorcycles, hundreds of them. They filled the street in front of St. Mary's, stretching as far as she could see. Men and women in leather jackets stood beside their bikes, all looking toward the orphanage. In front of them, all was Big Mike, his big bike parked right at the steps. Maya ran downstairs in her pajamas, pushing past confused staff members. When she got to the front door, Ms. Benson was already there, looking scared. "What is going on?" Ms. Benson asked, her voice shaking. Big Mike stepped forward. "We're here for Maya," he said. In his hands was a folder full of papers. Lily stood beside him, holding something round in her hands. Maya pushed the door open and stepped outside. The morning air was cool on her skin. Every biker turned to look at her, and for a moment, she felt shy in her old pajamas and messy hair. Then Big Mike smiled at her and she walked down the steps. 120 riders, Big Mike said, his voice proud. From every chapter in the country. They all came when they heard what you did for my little girl. Why? Maya asked, looking at the sea of bikes and stern faces that somehow didn't seem scary anymore. Big Mike held out the papers. "These are adoption papers," he said. "I know, you're almost 18, but family doesn't care about numbers. Adoption." Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. "I own part of a bike shop on Maple Street," Big Mike said. "Eddie told me you're the best mechanic he's ever seen. There's a job waiting for you. They're in an apartment above the shop. Already set up." Lily stepped forward, holding up what she had in her hands. It was a shiny black helmet with Maya painted on the side in pink letters. "Dad says you're my big sister now," she said. "If you want to be." Maya looked back at St. Mary's where she had spent so many lonely nights. Then she looked at the crowd of bikers who had come for her. People who didn't even know her but were here because she had saved one of their own. "You took a bullet for my blood," Big Mike said. "That makes you ours now if you want." Tears filled Maya's eyes, but for the first time in forever, they weren't sad tears. She reached out with her good arm and took the helmet from Lily. "I want to," she said. A cheer went up from the crowd, loud enough to shake the leaves in the trees. Ms. Benson came down the steps, looking at the papers in Big Mike's hands. "This isn't how things are normally done," she started to say. A woman biker stepped forward. "I'm a family court judge in Boston," she said. "These papers are legal. I made sure of it." 1 hour later, Maya had packed her few things. Big Mike helped carry her bag to his bike. The sun was bright now, making the chrome on the motorcycles shine like stars. Maya looked at the helmet in her hands, running her fingers over her name. "Ready to go home?" Big Mike asked. Home. Such a simple word, but one Maya had almost stopped believing in. She put on the helmet, careful of her injured shoulder. It fit perfectly, like it was made just for her. "Ready," she said, as she climbed onto the back of Big Mike's bike, with Lily sitting in front between them. Maya looked back at St. Mary's one last time. Rain no longer streamed down those windows. Instead, sunlight reflected off the glass, turning the whole building gold. The sound of 1,000 engines starting at once was like nothing Maya had ever heard. A roar of power and promise that she could feel in her chest. As they pulled away, the other riders fell in. Behind them, a river of chrome and leather flowing through the streets. Maya held onto Big Mike with her good arm, the wind on her face, and Lily's small back pressed against her. For the first time since she was 5 years